Today, the Supreme Court, when it gave its order in Nitish Katara murder case, it saw the culmination of a journey that lasted 14 and a half long years. It's a fight, and the person fighting that fight has been the mother of the victim, Nitish Katara. Neelam Katara joins us. I think for the last 14 and a half years, all that Neelam Katara has done and paid attention to has been court dates. And today, when the Supreme Court finally said that it was going to be 25 years, they upheld the High Court conviction and said that Vikas and Vishal Yadav had to spend 25 years in prison for the murder of Nitish Katara. It finally lays to end, and hopefully that's the last of Neelam Katara's visit. We also have joining us Alok Prasanna. He's a legal analyst of the Vidhi Law Center. We'll be going through various aspects of this case because this case has become a landmark case in all its proportions because it has certain characteristics where the accused comes from a very influential political family. Vikas Yadav is, of course, the son of DP Yadav, BSP politician, himself now in Tihar jail as well, in another case as well. Neelam Katara, congratulations for this incredibly long and tedious journey that it's been. I just want to first start with various things that the court said. When the court upheld, and you've been fighting this particular fight at the quantum of sentence in Supreme Court. Supreme Court upheld earlier this year the conviction of Vikas and Vishal Yadav, but they only today said, yes, it's not 14 years, but 25 years that both the brothers, the cousins, have to undergo of imprisonment. They've already been there since the last few years. I wanted to ask you, why was fighting for that 25 years very, very important to you?
It was very important, not simply because of the duration of the punishment, but anything more than 14 years meant that honor killing has been recognized in a very specific category of crime, which is rarest of rare, which is brutal, and which deserves a much higher punishment, because I think it's a scourge of a nation, especially when we want to call ourselves developed. So it is the fact that it squarely places Nitish's murder as an honor killing that makes it very important to me.
And it's interesting, you have been terming it as an honor killing. It's something that everyone wouldn't have called it immediately. What's interesting is that today's judgment, Supreme Court also mentions that. You want to read out a particular phrase, that passage from Supreme Court which actually upholds this order. And we always think of honor killings as something that happens in the hinterland, in the boondocks, but here you have Nitish Katara, the son of a senior government bureaucrat, being murdered, and Supreme Court has now said that yes, it was honor killing. What did they say?
So, as I was just reading the judgment before the show began, this one passage struck me, and I'll read it out in full. It's worth listening to and reading it. So, the Supreme Court says, one may feel my honor is my life, but that does not mean sustaining one's honor at the cost of another. Freedom, independence, constitutional identity, individual choice, and thought of a woman, be a wife or sister or daughter or mother, cannot be allowed to be curtailed, definitely not by application of physical force or threat or mental cruelty in the name of this self-assumed honor. So it's something that the Supreme Court is cognizant of. It's not something that it dismisses. It's something that the Supreme Court is aware is something that motivates men to do this kind of a crime. And it has clearly shown on the facts of this case, keeping in mind the events, the sequence of events that took place, that this killing was motivated by it. And I think to no small extent, the Delhi High Court's imposition of initially 30 years and now the 25-year sentence has been that, yes, maybe it's not the rarest of rare where there is no possibility of reformation, but we think a regular 14-year life sentence is not sufficient to.
And I'll come back to the 14 years and how it became the norm. But Neelam Katara, just to remind our viewers, because it has been such a long time that a whole generation seems to have passed, but that 14 years, and when they talk about honor killing, they are of course referring to Supreme Court, in fact, upholding your argument that Nitish Katara was killed because he was going out with Bharti Yadav, which became unpalatable for her family.
That's right. Absolutely. Definitely, because it was very clear, because I asked Nitish that what is it that they don't like about you, and he said because they marry only in their caste And secondly, they said that government servants are paupers. And these were two things, I mean, over which we had no choice. And I think this is basically, I think even honor is a cover which people put on, their patriarchal feelings, the whole idea of controlling a woman. And that is what we are fighting against, because if, going after a woman is a crime against women, if dowry, throwing acid, stalking, all crimes against women, so is honor killing, where you will not give her the option of making her own choice.
I wanted to just ask our audience that, and I'll come back to you if you think about it, if anyone wants to talk about it right now, that the fact that just 14 years ago, that somebody was killed because their family didn't approve of who they were friends with, is that something which seems outlandish right now? Or do you think from your people that you all socialize with, that seems that that could happen even today?
I still believe that such families exist. I mean, we are a democratic country. It's been 70 years that we're independent, and we lawfully say that 18 years is the age limit for considering a child an adult. So when we consider a child an adult at the age of 18 plus, any decision that the individual takes afterwards is his or her own consent. It has to have his or her own consent. How can the family decide on an individual's consent?
Yes, that's exactly what the Supreme Court in itself is saying as well. But Alok, I just want to come back to the 14 years thing. When did it, because a lot of us, and this has gained kind of argument in the last few years, when did it become the norm, and why did she have to fight extra hard and and you were very lucky because you had strong public prosecutors. But why is it that you have to fight extra hard? Why isn't life actual life?
So, life is actual life in one context, which is when the death penalty is being commuted. So if death penalty is awarded by a lower court and the higher court says death penalty should be commuted and to life imprisonment, their life means life. That's what the Supreme Court has clarified recently in a few series of judgments.
Yeah.
But coming back to regular life imprisonment, if you remember the history of our criminal laws, when the British brought in the law, they had a transportation for life, right, where you'd be sent off to Andaman and Nicobar somewhere else. That was for the rest of your life. It so happened that a Governor General of the British, this thing was killed by a convict. And when they were asked, why did you do it? He said, I had nothing else left to live for. I'm going to spend the rest of my life on this barren island. I have no hope. I have no possibility of remission. So I thought, why not do it? So they realized maybe the point of somebody shutting somebody out, giving them no hope for remission, only breeds a kind of madness, a kind of insanity, a kind of nihilism that we don't want to do.
Right.
So they first brought it down to 28 years. Then it was later.
This was when?
This was in early part of the 20th century.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. And much later it was brought down to 14 years. So the point is that
that is the norm now.
That is the norm. The purpose of punishment is not just simply retribution. It's not simply vengeance. It's the possibility that somebody can be given a chance to reform. Somebody can be given time to understand where they have made a mistake, to become better citizens if possible. And it's to explore that criminology is not just about punishing someone for a particular act, but also probably giving them a chance to become the better person, and as an example to others to say, if I can reform, maybe you can reform. Maybe you don't need to make this mistake. So, which is why in individual cases, of course, it's hard to specifically justify why 14, 25 or death penalty. It's a difficult call for a judge. If two sets of judges have taken a similar call, it's reasonable that it's a view that is not outrageous.
And while that makes sense as someone into looking at legal reform, as someone thinking about a judicial system, as the mother of Nitish, and I think you said something today soon after the judgment which was so moving, and you said that he's not like a pair of slippers, they burnt a person.
Absolutely. So and the penalty for destruction of evidence is maximum is 10 years. Yet initially also he was given 5 years. So that was one thing I couldn't understand. I mean, this concurrence in this is of course the prerogative of the judge. I'm not arguing against that. But what I say is who takes the decision whether a person has reformed or not. That is a very important thing, because if this punishment had not been enhanced, this man would have been out now. He's been there for 14 years. He
would have been out now.
He would have had a chance. Whether he got remission or not was a different thing. And I mean the jailer who's been allowing him to go as often as he wants to go to the hospital from where he goes out for celebrating Diwali, or the same jail which has allowed him to go twice a month to Badaयूं for court case for whatever it is worth without even questioning that why is he being called on a Sunday.
Yeah, just to explain
So
to our
will
viewers
we
what you're
let
referring
the-
to
yeah.
is the fact that, of course, what the Supreme Court order also took note of was that while they were in jail, there were reports that they were going to hospitals and spending in 1 year. They had spent in the course of how much time they had spent almost.
Yeah, I mean, Vishal had been there for, if you add up, within 4 or 5 years, for one whole year, 3 months, and Vikas had been going for frequent one-day trips, about which All India Institute gave no details, and finally he was caught sitting there for 3 months, just waiting for the money to come so that he could get a PET scan. So they have taken a serious note of this. So, I mean, how can we trust jail authorities of this caliber to give them a certificate that yes, this man is reformed and please may he be allowed to go out on remission. Yes, I am all for prisoner reform and there are many people working on prisoner reform. But what about the deterrent value of punishment? Because crime is on an increase. So how does a criminal or a potential criminal feel scared of being punished if he knows that he will go in for a short while, come out again, and while he's there, if he has the money, he can keep coming and going. Even in the jail, I believe everything is available for a price in Tihar jail.
Yeah, and so that is the things that you brought up
That is
in
what
court.
I'm worried about. For the rest of my life, am I going to send an RTI application every 2 months to find out how many days these people have spent outside the jail? Who is going to do that?
Is that fight going to continue for you?
I mean, should it continue for me? Will somebody else please take responsibility? The state, surely the judicial system, which has given them life imprisonment, needs to make sure somehow that this imprisonment is actually put into practice. I mean,
They keep going off to hospitals.
They keep going to hospitals. Now they've started going
so,
to
Mr.
courts.
Katara, I wanted to ask you, this is terribly tragic. So you're saying that the Supreme Court acknowledges that they spent these many days. As you said, in 5 years they spent almost 1 year. Vishal Yadav spent 1 year in hospitals, various hospitals, for various things like a PET scan or whatever it is. I don't know
Vikas
what
for PET scan,
Yeah.
Vikas for review, for collecting his medical report. He was visiting.
And this is all not an allegation. This has been upheld by Supreme Court. So I wanted to ask you, so this part of it, Supreme Court said it, then did Tihar take action?
Tihar didn't take any action, but the place which is the 3rd Battalion of the Delhi Armed Police, they took action on 2 constables and they lost their jobs. I think action needs to be taken on the doctors.
They took action on the constables
and
for what?
always the
for
law
accompanying them.
for accompanying Vikas Yadav out of the jail on Diwali night and
So
not
on-
even reporting
And
it.
you were telling me earlier, I believe, that even on New Year's, there are reports. It's so obvious that they are actually going out and enjoying themselves. That on New Year's Eve, they say that they're going to a hospital.
Absolutely. And no action against any Tihar authority, no action against the doctors. I mean, AIIMS is a government hospital. Vishal was going to Batra, but AIIMS, of course, is a law unto itself. Which doctor allowed him to stay there for 3 weeks waiting for a PET scan, which was finally done as a day patient?
Okay.
Which doctor has called him 100 times?
So that is something you have to keep fighting. And if you see
Yeah.
reports of that,
No, but I think the Supreme Court having taken cognizance on this, I think the Tihar jail should be sending a report to Delhi government every month.
okay, we're going to talk more about this. Also about how various people who feel at one with Mrs. Katara's fight, how they called her up, informed her about Vikas Yadav breaking the law while being still inside jail. We'll talk to her about that in just a bit. Stay with us. Welcome back. On agenda, we're with Neelam Katara on the day that the Supreme Court has ordered and given hopefully the last word in the case. They said that Nitish Katara's murder was by Vikas and Vishal Yadav, and they have to be in jail for 25 years. Prashant Bhushan now joining us, and Neelam Katara is with us. Mr. Prashant Bhushan, I saw you tweeting about this. For you as a lawyer, as a senior advocate watching this, sir, what kind of precedent, what kind of message do you think Supreme Court's order today sends?
No, I think that the Supreme Court judgment and the sentence order has sent the right kind of message that such crimes are cannot be tolerated in any society and they must be deterred by a heavy hand. and I think 25 years in jail is a serious punishment, which is normally adequate to deter such people. You see, this gentleman, this Vikas Yadav, was a young man, but he seemed to have grown up with this feeling, having lived under the shadow of his father, who was a don of UP. He felt that he could get away with anything, and he committed this absolutely heinous crime. But 25 years in jail, I think, if it is a proper jail, not like the jail that Shahabuddin was in, where he was able to get whatever he wanted or able to get out of jail whenever he wanted, 25 years of proper rigorous imprisonment is I think is a serious deterrent for these kind of crimes. I have always been opposed to death penalty because I feel that death penalty increases the tendency or propensity of violence in any society. Besides, you see, death penalty is irrevocable, and sometimes wrong kind of people get hanged, and later it turns out that they were innocent. So therefore, that is why death penalty has been abolished in most countries, and I support the abolition of death penalty. But as I said, this is a very serious and heinous crime committed by a person under the impression that he could, because of the protection of his father, he could get away with anything, and therefore needs to be deterred by a heavy hand, and that's what the Supreme Court has done.
So a major message coming out. A lot of people have a lot of questions as well. What did you want to ask? Yeah.
My question is that it's been written 66 times that Vikas goes out, and the reason has been unclarified.
About who's going to jail, out of jail. Yeah.
Out of jail, and many other times. Why isn't been worked out on this, that any of the criminal who's going out of without any
that's
reason?
exactly what Ms. Katara raised as well. What was your question?
Ma'am, when Supreme Court took action against those two constables, after that, you think that situations were changed or they were same as before?
Well, I think the jail got a message, and they've stopped going to the hospital. That was in the last 1 year when their case was in the High Court. But then they started going to Badaयूं, where the local court, and Badaयूं's been their father's constituency, kept inviting them, kept asking them to come every month, twice, for a case which had been lying dormant, which the police had given up.
And Mr. Katara, actually I want to ask Prashant Bhushan that she has raised how Vikas and Vishal Yadav keep going out of jail. Isn't there, and Supreme Court has brought its order on that, how is it they are still not being stopped, sir?
I can't hear you, unfortunately, Sunetra, because the voice, the sound on the phone is very, very unclear.
Okay, thanks for that update. The phone is very, very unclear. Okay, I understand. What's your question? Yeah,
my question basically was that it's clear that the influence of politics in this case, the testimonies of the victims being changed, and one of the witness even being harmed, fatally harmed. So why did not the Supreme Court investigate into this fact and also set a landmark? And I believe that it has set a landmark punishing the sons of a political don.
Yeah, that's the big message coming out. Finally, we're totally out of time, but I wanted to want you to share with people how a lot of people, unknown strangers, have come out to be your, to help you out as well.
Yeah, that happens all the time, and that's where I get my strength from. I mean, even about Because being in the hospital, it was a resident doctor from there who called me up from a PCO saying that, ma'am, we've seen your fight, we feel very bad about this because they're celebrating New Year's in the thing.
So it was another doctor who...
It was another doctor. It has been NGOs working with prisoners who say, because these people used to make a racket that, why is this happening? So these kind of things happen, and even all over the place I meet people who tell me that, sometimes they tell me that we wanted to fight, we've lost somebody, but we couldn't do it, but now we want all our energy to go to you.
Well, you're really an inspiration, Neelam Katara.
I'm very grateful for everybody for being with me, and you guys also. You've been so
Thank you, Neelam Katara. Thanks, Alok Prasanna, Prashant Bhushan, for your comments as well. The end and culmination of the legal journey in the Nitish Katara case, and hopefully it sets a precedent in all such cases. That's it on Agenda. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.